Welcome to Life on Maui. I'm your host, Stephen Freid. My guest for today is local legend, Rita O'Connor, ballroom and Latin dance instructor and professional. Welcome to the show, Rita.
Thank you for having me, Steve.
What a pleasure.
Mahalo.
You started out with a degree in fashion design from New York City. Talk a little bit about that.
I actually got 2 degrees. One was from Rutgers University in New Jersey and one at the Fashion Institute in New York. And I decided that I wanted to pursue a combination of my talents of illustration and sewing skills, although my original plan was to go more academia. And I combined the 2 into fashion design degrees. So I started working in New York City. And one of the things I discovered in college was, after taking a ballroom dance class, that I enjoyed combining my music and movement as well.
And there are a couple different aspects of fashion design that you were involved in that you spoke of.
I actually started in retail, and
where were you working?
I was working at Macy's at that point, and decided, although my degrees were in design, to get a broader scope and background. So working with the customers, I decided after a short period of time was not what I wanted to do. One of the things I did as my very first vacation while I was in retail was take a cruise, and there I saw a ballroom dance professional couple performing, and I said this would be perfect. I could enjoy dance, and still I designed my own costumes. And so I went through a variety of different jobs in the fashion industry, all the way back through trend forecasting, which helps us learn what trends will be coming forward in fashion. And I started taking some ballroom dance classes shortly after that as well.
Yeah, so you took ballroom and Latin dance classes, and within 3 weeks you were competing.
Yes, that was a little unusual. While I was still in retail, I had to find a way to calm down after working with customers all day. So I looked in the newspaper, and there was an ad for a dance package of lessons, and the first studio that I went to, the teacher was a Steven Seagal look-alike. Went in, we stood in front of the mirror, he moved my hips a little bit with me, and asked me after a half an hour if I thought about competing. And I asked him in what? And he said Latin dancing. He said I had great motion, good rhythm, and so for the next 3 weeks we worked on a routine for a swing, and I went to the first dance competition. Then I was absolutely hooked.
And from there, you met Pierre Dulane.
Yes.
Pierre Dulane is the one who is played by Antonio Banderas in Take the Lead.
Correct.
And a documentary on his work in Mad Hot Ballroom. So you studied with him, you were in his...
I was in his studio, and as an amateur dancer and competitor, we socialized at a lot of different studios, and Pierre Dulane's was one of them. At the time, I had an amateur dance partner that I was going up through the ranks of bronze, silver, and gold and competing with, and had hoped at some point to turn professional in my later part of my dance career. But one day while at Pierre's, my amateur dance partner informed me that he agreed to start working at Pierre's, and once a teacher gets paid or a dance person gets paid, they're considered professionals, very much like the Olympics. And so now I found myself without an amateur dance partner. So Pierre Dulane, on the spot, offered me a job to work at his studio. So it was quite an honor for me. Pierre Dulane started the American Ballroom Theater and has worked wonderful programs in the inner city school districts in New York City as well with the ballroom dancing.
And I understand that he had a protocol of the way women and men dressed, and actually in his honor,
I see that.
I'm wearing a tie today.
I was very, very impressed, Steve, when we got out here to do the interview. Pierre always required the gentlemen to be gentlemen. So the teachers were required to wear shirt and tie as the men, and the ladies always in a dress and heels and well-groomed.
And for a while after you moved to Maui and you were teaching, you continued in that tradition.
I continued, yes. For the first few years we were teaching here on Maui. Brian always had a shirt and tie on while I wore dresses instructing. But we have now adapted a little bit more to the Maui laid-back style, and I still dress up for my dance classes, but not so much.
And you had another important person you worked with, Paul Peluquero, who was a dance instructor to the stars Richard Gere, Al Pacino, on and on. You worked with him.
Yes, Paul Peluquero had one of the largest dance studios in New York City, along with his business partner Diane Lathrop. And I worked at that studio with about 21 other dance professionals full-time. And Paul has worked with a lot of the Hollywood stars. Paul and I have done some performances together as well. And he visited Maui as a guest of mine and Brian's about 3 years ago and helped teach some classes here on the island. So quite a fascinating dancer, well-versed in both international and American style dancing.
And we'll get to that. Okay. Up until around 1950, ballroom dancing was considered an aristocratic thing. And at that point, Fred Astaire, Arthur Murray came into the picture, and how did that change things?
What happened was most of the dances that are traditionally considered ballroom, your waltz, fox, tango, Viennese waltz, were all more high society dances. So when vaudeville came around and more of our American movie-going and theater-going public wanted to see more dance, we had more of the entertainment aspect of it. And it was Fred Astaire and Arthur Murray who decided that instead of all the techniques and higher end levels of dancing, that the common person could also learn to do all these fancy moves. So it was Fred Astaire and the Arthur Murray franchises who created a series of steps that made it easy for everyone to follow. There are two styles of dancing, one of which is called the international style, and that is worldwide. Every country that does dancing does international style. And it is only in the U.S. where we have American style dancing. And that is more social and also more free in movement, where you can have separation of partners. It doesn't have as many rigid rules as the international might, but similar to the ballet version of dance, the international style has more technique, more regimented form, whereas the American or social style is more loose. It's meant to be more fun.
Your partner, Brian, who is really an integral part of your life in every way, you met Brian as your student.
That's correct.
So tell that story.
Well, in New York City at the major studios, we as instructors take turns on accepting new incoming students, and the day that Brian came into the studio that Paul was running at the time, I was next in line, so he became my student. He took lessons both in the New York studio, where he had businesses in the city, as well as New Jersey, where he maintained a home as well. And so during the week, he took lessons at the Stepping Out studio, and private lessons with me. And then back in New Jersey, he did some competitions and some social dancing with his other studio. And eventually, we just found we had a lot of things in common, started dating, and eventually married. And that's been 12 years now.
And he was very successful in the photo business in New York. Is that true? You were telling me some things about that.
Yes, he had a business, usually very groundbreaking aspects to photo and digital imaging at the time, and was extremely successful in the New York City area. He grew in a very short period of time through a lot of hard work and vision, which is one of his strong points. And one of the things that I did with my dance was always try to succeed in aspects of getting better students, and helping them improve and reach their goals, helping them through competitions, placing both professionally and with my pro-am students. So we each had very different forms of success, but we both knew that a personal success would be an inside passage as to a greater form of what the reward would be. So it need not necessarily be monetary or have some other physical form, but rather a satisfaction in the success.